Hello friends, in the first series of videos, we have given important books to be referred for various subjects for your prelims 2023. In this series of videos, we will be giving you important hit list topics subject wise, and these hit list topics have been made based on very careful analysis of the previous 10 years of question papers by our expert team of faculties. Now I will take up some important topics which has to be carefully studied for your prelims polity 2023. In the history of Indian Constitution, based on the previous year question paper, they have asked only some important legislations like Government of India Act 1919, then Government of India Act 1935, then Cabinet Mission and Cripps Mission. The dimensions we have given. For example, in 1919 Act, they have asked whether it is reserved list item or transferred list item. Then most importantly, whether women's right to vote has been given in this legislation. The federal provisions connected to 1919 Act. Then women reservation, whether it is given in 1935 Act. And what are the features of the Cabinet Mission Plan. And how the Constituent Assembly members have been allocated by the Cripps Mission Plan. So these are some of the important topics when it comes to the history of Indian Constitution. Now the second is the features of Indian Constitution. Who is the custodian of the Indian Constitution? They have asked whether Supreme Court or President of India. Then what is the meaning of constitutional government? See, 3 times they have asked about what is constitutional government. So very carefully you have to read this. And 2 times they have asked about the features of federalism. Then they have asked about what is rule of law. And 4 times they have asked about the parliamentary form of government. Parliamentary form of government we have borrowed from British. So comparison between Indian model and British model. Then the features of the parliamentary form of government. Then what are the advantages to have parliamentary form of government? So these are some of the topics which has to be seen from the features of Indian Constitution. Now come to the preamble. Preamble terms they are asking. What are the original wordings present in the preamble? So through amendment, 42nd Amendment Act, what are the terms which they have added? And each and every term, the concept will have to be carefully studied. For example, what is liberty they have asked. Many times they have asked about the definition of liberty and how liberty and law are correlated, whether increasing liberty will be by increasing law, or whether the proportional relation between law and liberty or inversely proportional relation. What is economic justice? What is the mind of the makers of the Constitution? Where it is reflected? The answer is it is reflected in the preamble. Is preamble a part of the Constitution? So these are some of the aspects which you have to see from preamble. Third part called the definition of state, which appropriately or which best defines state. That question they have asked once, and then only once they have asked the concept of citizenship, especially connected to domicile and how and all citizenship will be deprived. So these two have been put in one single question, and it was last year it was asked. Next is on fundamental rights. So what are the fundamental rights which will come under the basic structure doctrine? Article 14 is very important. Equality is very important. So what is the scope of this Article 14? It is to check the discretionary power of the state. And what are the implications of the concept of equality? What type of equality or what type of fundamental right comes under untouchability? It is a type of right to equality which is guaranteed from Article 14 to Article 18, and 17 is untouchability. So it is what? A product of, or it is a feature of, or it is an aspect of right to equality. Whether right to marry comes under which right? It is under right to privacy, and right to privacy comes under which provision? Right to life. 2 times they have asked about right to privacy. Then right against exploitation, 23rd and 24th article they have asked, and the writ jurisdiction they have asked. For example, last year they have asked about mandamus, whether mandamus can be issued against a private company having a statutory obligation, or whether it applies to a government company. Like that they have asked about the writ, especially mandamus they have asked in the last year. Now come to the rights outside part 3. Like what is the concept of right? What do you mean by right they have asked? And what is the status of right to property, whether it is a constitutional right or it is a fundamental right? Or then right to vote also they have asked, whether it is a legal right or it is a fundamental right. And 2 times they have asked about Forest Right Act. Who is initiating the Forest Right Act. For example, Gram Sabha was the answer. And what is the term which they are giving? What are the terms given in the Human Declaration of Fundamental Rights? And where it is mentioned, whether it is mentioned in preamble or this declaration, human rights declaration is present in fundamental rights or DPSP. So the comparison of preamble, fundamental rights, DPSP with the human rights declaration, UN Declaration of Human Rights, and what is the relation between rights and duties. So rights and duties are the same side of the, or the two sides of the same coin. Rights and duties are correlatives of each other. So this was asked. Then directive principles of state policy is a very important question, that is it judicially justiciable, whether it is legally enforceable. Like that they have asked about the nature of DPSP. Then welfare state and DPSP, what is the provision of welfare state which is ingrained in DPSP, what are the relationship between fundamental rights and DPSP. Article 50, that is separation between judiciary and executive, was asked once. Then which directive is talking about the international peace and security. Article 51, we know that. What are the amendments which they have made to DPSP through 42nd Amendment Act? What are the new provisions which they have included? For example, Article 39A was included, 43A was included, 48A was included. Like that they were connecting 42nd Amendment Act with DPSP. Then fundamental duties, they are comparing duties with that of preamble, DPSP and fundamental rights. So don't read duty in isolation, read duties with respect to preamble, DPSP and fundamental rights. Then come to union executive. Two times they have asked about the Council of Ministers, especially what is the maximum strength of the Council of Ministers, not more than 15% of the lower house. That is the answer. Election of the President of India, Electoral College of the President of India, Vice President of India, and what is the feature of cabinet form of government, how Parliament is controlling the government. Two times they have asked. Then who is making convenient rules for the transaction of the business of Government of India, President of India under Article 77. This was asked in the past. So these are the dimensions from union executive. Union legislature, so who is summoning the Parliament? President of India. Minimum number of days to meet, minimum 6 months once they have to meet. Lok Sabha, when it comes to Lok Sabha, what are the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha not available to Rajya Sabha? The qualification needed for member of Parliament. MP election, two times they have asked what is the vote which is needed for them to get elected as MP. Then the nature of private member bill, who can introduce, how to introduce, and when there is a dissolution of Lok Sabha, what happens to the bill, whether it is lapsing or it is not lapsing. It is a very important concept which was asked in the last year, and they were also asking on the no confidence motion. Now Rajya Sabha, they are asking in what way Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha have equal powers. There was a question. Two questions were connected to the power of Rajya Sabha with respect to money bill and the demand for grant and the budget discussion. Discussion can be made, voting cannot be done. So that is what is the nature of the bills given and the power of the Rajya Sabha. Then the provision for joint sitting and the officers of the Parliament, like Speaker office they have asked, election of Speaker, vacation of Speaker, dissolution of House, and what happens to Speaker. Deputy Speaker they have asked, the rules of procedure connected to Deputy Speaker, how he is elected, what are the powers of the Deputy Speaker, how he is appointed, and leader of opposition they are asking, membership status of the chairman, whether chairman is the member of Rajya Sabha, whether deputy chairman is the member of Rajya Sabha. The budgetary process is very, very important, which you have to study carefully. Then the MP led fund, you have to definitely have some sort of understanding of how this fund is operating. And parliamentary committee is a very, very important area, because 3 times they have asked about parliamentary committee, especially the public account committee was asked. And which is the largest committee? They'll give 4 committees and they'll ask you which is the largest committee. State executive, governor is very important. Who is recommending or who recommended that the post of governor should not be a political post, it should be apolitical. The provisions of the appointment of governor, whether he can be appointed as a governor in multiple states, what are the immunities available for the governor, what are the discretionary powers available for the governor, and come to the state legislature, the comparison of state assembly with that of Lok Sabha. Suppose if there is no rule in state assembly, can they use the rule of Lok Sabha on that particular matter? This was asked in the last year, and the composition of the legislative council was asked, and whether how many people are nominated by the governor to the legislative council was a question. The maximum number of members present in this upper house of state, how he is elected, how he is nominated. Then judiciary is a very important area. Judicial review, they have asked many times. And what is the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court? Original, advisory, revisory. Impeachment, 2 times they have asked on impeachment of the Supreme Court judge. Then what happens when there is a need for additional judges? Whether retired judges can be called by the CJI to dispose the cases. Article 142, complete justice has to be rendered by Supreme Court of India. Contempt of court, they have asked last year. Contempt of court, definition of contempt of court, they have asked. And who has recommended the law? Based on whose recommendation law of contempt of court was made by the Parliament. Revisory jurisdiction, whether it is available for the High Court. High Court's power with respect to the parliamentary law. What are the powers available for Bar Council? How to recognize an advocate? So recognition of advocate. These two are very generic question, which is not there in the standard book which you study for Indian polity. Similarly, this also comes in the newspaper. What is the distinction between police custody and judicial custody and parole? So you should understand that in the recent times, 9, 10, 11, 12, they are not there in the standard textbook which you are reading. So you have to study all these things which comes frequently in the newspaper. So go beyond the traditional learning. Schedule 5 and 6, why they are present, who will be protected by them. When an area comes under scheduled area, what are the consequences they have asked, what are the provisions of the 5th schedule, and scheduled areas and the tribal land transfer, the PVTG, concept of particularly vulnerable tribal group. So these are important from the point of view of 5th and the 6th schedule. Then come to the local governments, PRI. What do you mean by democratic decentralization? The conceptual clarity is what is tested again and again. So be thorough with the concepts you are studying in Indian polity. Then Panchayat Raj election. What is the qualification to contest in the election? What happens when there is a premature dissolution of PRI? What are the objectives of PRI? And PISA Act was asked once. So these are some of the aspects which you have to see from the PRI. Then come to center-state relation. What is the power of the Parliament with respect to the state list? How, when Parliament can make law on state list? Article 249 and all, you have to study. Taxation, who is imposing what tax? For example, sales tax on toothpaste is imposed by whom? Whether it is state list or it is central list or it is concurrent list. So Schedule 7 is very important. And Parliament's power in making law related to international treaty. If they have to give effect to international treaty, Parliament need not ask even the state concerned, right? So Parliament's power to give effect to international treaty. And next area which has to be given attention to is constitutional body. For example, 2 times they have asked about Attorney General of India. What are the powers available for the Attorney General with respect to the Parliament? He can sit and participate in the parliamentary discussion. He can be a member of parliamentary committee, but he does not have any right to vote. When he is tendering resignation, he will be addressing this resignation to whom? And CAG duties, they have asked. CAG duties, 1971 Act has to be thoroughly studied along with the constitutional provision under Article 148. Then Election Commission, what are the powers and the functions of Election Commission? For example, if there is a political party and there are problems in the political party, who will resolve the problem? So like that, the powers of the Election Commission has been asked. Then non-constitutional body, statutory body also is an area of interest for UPSC. For example, the creation of the personal department, they have asked when they have created this personal department, and who is regulating the regulator, regulating the regulators. Insurance, telecom, who and all will be regulating this, how they are regulated, regulating the regulators. Then functions of the cabinet secretary was asked. Chief secretary appointment, who is appointing, whether governor is appointing or CM is appointing, what is the tenure of the chief secretary? Planning, they have asked in the past. NDC they have asked, but these two will not be asked in the future because they were made before, and NDC, Planning Commission and all, Planning Commission especially is not there, it is replaced by Niti Aayog. So instead of Planning Commission, you have to study Niti Aayog. Then amendments, important amendments they are asking. 2 times they have asked about the Constitution Amendment Bill, how it is amended, what are the provisions, how you have to introduce the bill, what type of majority needed, and 9th schedule is very important. 2 times they have asked on 9th schedule, and 44th Amendment Act, 2 times they have asked. Most importantly, the recent amendments, 99th Amendment was asked because it created the NJAC. So recent amendments plus landmark amendments like 42, 44, right? Then schedules are very, very important. We come to the next area, emergency. 2 times they have asked about state emergency. National emergency they have not asked in the last 10 years. State emergency they have asked, and financial emergency also was not asked. So read properly. State emergency, election and disqualification, anti-defection law, 2 times they have asked. Representation of People Act they have asked. What is the disqualification ground from contesting in the election? Right? Office of profit disqualification also was asked. So RPA is very, very important. Then miscellaneous topics like what are the virtues of democracy and what are the characteristic features of bureaucracy. Then free legal services, for whom and all this applies, and Gram Nyayalaya Act and its provision was asked. So miscellaneous topics also will have to be given due importance. So all these topics are only to tell you that these are the hit list topics which has to be thoroughly studied for Indian Polity 2023 prelims. In the next series of videos, we will be coming out with some strategies to crack the question successfully. See you. Thank you.